Hello and welcome to UGCE Pathshala. I am Dr. Swikar Lama, Assistant Professor in Criminology and Police Studies at Sardar Patel University of Police, Security and Criminal Justice, Jodhpur. I am going to present the module on contemporary crime prevention methods. The learning outcomes of this module are to make the learners understand the concepts of contemporary crime prevention methods, to make the learners understand about various forms of contemporary crime prevention methods, and to familiarize the learners with various methods of crime prevention. Crime prevention refers to the range of strategies that are implemented by individuals, communities, businesses, non-governmental organizations and all levels of government to target the various social and environmental factors that increase the risk of crime, disorder and victimization. There are a variety of different approaches to crime prevention that differ in terms of the focus of the intervention, the types of activities that are delivered, the theory behind how those activities are designed to bring about the desired results, and the mechanisms that are applied. Various models have been developed to categorize the broad range of activity that falls within the definition of crime prevention. Now, we will discuss about the various contemporary approaches to crime prevention. Understanding the different approaches to crime prevention is important as there are implications for determining the appropriate institutional and management arrangements necessary to support specific crime prevention interventions. An understanding of the different approaches available and their underlying rationale and theory is also crucial to developing effective crime prevention programs and projects. The environmental approach, which includes situational crime prevention techniques and broader urban planning initiatives, aims to modify the physical environment to reduce the opportunities for crime to occur. The social approach focuses on the underlying social and economic causes of crime in the community, example lack of social cohesion, limited access to housing, employment, education and health services, and on limiting the supply of motivated offenders and includes developmental prevention and community development models. The criminal justice approach refers to various programs delivered by police, the courts and corrections that aims to prevent recidivism among those people who have already engaged in offending behavior and who have come into contact with the criminal justice system. Now I'll discuss the various theories underlying environmental and social approaches to crime prevention, the principles underpinning effective strategies, and a brief summary of the evidence in support of the different approaches. Now let us discuss about environmental crime prevention. Environmental approach seeks to change the specific characteristics of the environment that may cause criminal events in occur. This includes both situational approaches to crime prevention and broader planning initiatives and aims to reduce crime by designing and or modifying the physical environment to reduce the opportunities for crime to occur. Now I will talk about situational crime prevention. Situational crime prevention is based upon the premise that crime is often opportunistic and aims to modify contextual factors to limit the opportunities for offenders to engage in criminal behavior. Situational prevention comprises a range of measures that highlight the importance of targeting very specific forms of crime in certain circumstances. This involves identifying, manipulating, and controlling the situational or environmental factors associated with certain types of crimes. It is also based upon assumptions regarding the nature of offending and of offenders. Underlying the situational approach are 4 key elements, including 3 key opportunity theories: routine activity, crime pattern and rational choice theory, and action research methodology that involves analyzing of specific crime problems and contributing factors, identifying possible responses, selecting and implementing of the most appropriate or promising response, and evaluating and discriminating the results. The focus of the three key opportunity theories is actually quite different. Under routine activity theory, three critical elements must occur simultaneously for a criminal event to take place: a motivated offender, a suitable target, and the absence of a capable guardian. The theory seeks to explain how societal changes can impact upon opportunities for crime. Crime pattern theory seeks to explain the influence of communities and neighborhoods, and it focuses on how offenders may come across opportunities for crime in the course of the everyday lives. Rational choice theory has a more individualistic focus and explores the decision-making processes that lead to an offender choosing to become involved in the crime or specific criminal events, including weighing up the relative risks and rewards associated with offending. Situational crime prevention interventions include activities such as improved security through strengthening locks and improving surveillance. Cornish and Clark have classified 25 situational crime prevention techniques into 5 broad categories that are based on the mechanisms underlying the different methods: increasing the effort involved in offending, increasing the risk associated with offending, reducing the rewards that come from committing a crime, reducing rational factors that influence the propensity of an individual to offend, and removing excuses for offending behavior. This relative simple classification scheme provides a useful framework for describing the range and variety of situational techniques on offer to those working in crime prevention. Important lessons for the implementation of situational crime prevention projects taken from the UK experience where situational approaches have been common include that it works most effectively when it is targeted at a specific crime problem in a specific context, involves a thorough and systematic analysis of current and emerging crime problems and their causes and risk factors, that is based on accurate and wide-ranging sources of information and has analysts with the capacity to interpret the data. It requires appropriate consultation mechanisms to seek input from stakeholders and the community into the development of strategies that are likely to require their action, involvement or cooperation, and it requires strong project management skills, comprehensive implementation plan that describes the key stages in project delivery and the interrelationships between different but complementary interventions, and committee made up of representatives from key stakeholder groups to oversee project development, implementation and review. There is considerable evidence of the effectiveness of situational crime prevention in reducing crime. Despite there being limitations in the evaluation literature, a review of the evidence by X showed that opportunity reduction measures can reduce crime to many circumstances with little evidence of displacement. An evaluation of the UK Reducing Residential Burglary Initiative found that areas where more money had been invested in situational crime prevention rather than offender-focused prevention and those that were flexible in their delivery were generally more successful in reducing residential burglary. While there is insufficient evidence to determine the most cost-effective approach in modifying environmental conditions to prevent crime, there is sufficient evidence that situational crime prevention is an economically efficient strategy in reducing crime. There are some notable exceptions. A recent systematic review concluded that CCTV has a modest but significant positive effect on crime, but that it is most effective in reducing crime in car parks and when targeted at vehicle crimes. Further, the cost of establishing, maintaining and monitoring a CCTV system can be prohibitively expensive and potentially exceed any financial savings that might result from a reduction in property crime. Taken together, these results lend support for the continued use of CCTV to prevent crime in public spaces, but suggest that it needs to be more narrowly targeted than its present use would indicate. Now let us discuss about urban design and planning. Broader planning initiatives include CPDED and urban renewal projects and seek to reduce the opportunities for crime through the design and management of the built and landscaped environment. Crime prevention is being recognized as an increasingly important consideration in urban generation programs. This includes strategies that involve modifying the built environment to create safer places that are less crime prone or can make people feel safer, such as by designing public spaces that encourage large numbers of users and provide greater natural surveillance, or by designing pedestrian thoroughfares that are well fit and do not create places for potential offenders to hide. CPDD has a major influence in crime prevention policy and practice in the West and in other parts of the world, and a number of state, territory and local governments now have specific planning policies that incorporate CPDD principles or guidelines. Experience has shown that CPDD needs to be integrated as a part of broader crime prevention strategy targeting other risk factors and neighborhood problems, which requires community involvement, partnerships and the coordination of activities. It is underpinned by the number of important principles such as natural surveillance, territoriality, sustainability and vulnerability of public places, and these principles should drive design decisions. Crime prevention approaches, theory and mechanisms should be focused at both the macro overall design of the built environment and micro level, that is the finer details. It should be applied to both public initiatives and private developments and involves careful management of the relationship between public and private space. It requires a balance between competing interests such as between privacy and security, the involvement of different design-related professional disciplines. The evidence in support of CPDD is growing. Although unlike other approaches to crime prevention, CPDD has not been systematically evaluated. A recent review suggests that there is some evidence that CPDD is a promising approach, although this evidence is not definitive and has attracted criticism. Research has demonstrated that there is a strong relationship between certain characteristics of the built environment and crime levels, although the research into certain relationships such as the relationship between through movement and connectivity and crime has been inconsistent. While further research into the impact of SEPTED is warranted, there is sufficient evidence to support the application of SEPTED principles as well as environmental safety assessments more broadly as a key consideration in the development of the built environment, including new development proposals and urban regeneration initiatives. Now we will talk about social crime prevention. Rather than focusing on the physical environment, social crime prevention is most commonly directed at trying to influence the underlying social and economic causes of crime as well as offender motivation. This approach tends to include crime prevention measures that take some time to produce the intended results. This may include action to improve housing, health and educational achievement as well as improved community cohesion through community development measures. Finally, a nationwide campaign is needed to reignite India's core values and traditions that respect and nurture women and children. This can also be born out of consensus in society. Awareness amongst men of the scope of this issue is critical. Now let us talk about developmental crime prevention. Developmental crime prevention initiatives are becoming increasingly popular in the West. There has been considerable investment in early intervention programs in the West, many of which do not have explicit crime prevention objectives. Developmental crime prevention is based on the premise that intervening early in a young person's development can produce significant long-term social and economic benefits. While there is evidence of the importance of intervening early in life, the focus of developmental crime prevention is in intervening as any of a number of critical transition points in a person's development to lead them on the pathway to prevent future offending. Transition points occur around birth, the preschool years, transition from primary to high school, and from high school to further education or the workforce. Early intervention aims to address risk factors and enhance protective factors that impact upon the likelihood that a young person will engage in future offending behavior. Risk and protective factors can be categorized into child factors, family factors, school context, life events, and community and cultural factors. Developmental programs aim to identify, measure, and manipulate risk and protective factors that research has confirmed are important in predicting future offending. In practical terms, developmental crime prevention involves providing basic services or resources to individuals, families, schools, or communities to minimize the impact of risk factors on the development of offending behaviors. Most often, these resources and services are directed towards disadvantaged or vulnerable families with young children. Several factors have been identified as contributing to the successful implementation of developmental crime prevention initiatives, including the importance of timing and intervening at critical junctures such as times of stress or when people are open to external influences, which may not mean early in life. The need to target multiple risk factors due to their cumulative impact with bias towards those factors regarded as having the greatest impact and to target multiple offense types. The need to be sensitive to the needs of the local area, including the need to be culturally sensitive, involve and empower the community in decision making as volunteers and as paid professionals, and identify local change agents. The importance of detailed assessment of community readiness, the presence of existing partnerships and management structures, leadership stability, community engagement and support, and commitment to prevention, which is a key component of programs such as Communities That Care. The importance of strategies to make program accessible, keep people involved, and to avoid stigmatizing at-risk young people or families. The value of partnerships and coordination between new and existing service providers, whether they rely on formal interagency structures or more simple arrangements, and the requirement for longer term investment as the benefits of the developmental crime prevention are not immediate. Evidence from a small but growing number of comprehensive evaluation studies has demonstrated the long-term effectiveness of early intervention in achieving significant reductions in participants' involvement in crime, as well as improvements in areas such as educational performance, child maltreatment, workforce participation, child and youth behavior, income and substance abuse. In addition to the obvious social benefits, these outcomes are also associated with significant financial savings, both for the community and the participant. The savings produced by early intervention programs include reductions in welfare assistance, decreased need for special education, increase in income tax revenue from higher wages of participants due to improved educational attainment, reduced operational costs to the criminal justice system, and reduced costs to the victims. Conversely, at least one study has demonstrated long-term negative outcomes for participants and the problems of stigmatizing participants as being at risk or delinquents. Research into the impact of developmental crime prevention suggests that intervening early in a young person's development is a promising strategy in improving the life course development of at-risk children and their families, and in reducing the long-term costs associated with delinquency and future criminal offending. Now, community development. Community development is premised on the notion that changing the physical or social organization of communities may influence the behavior of individuals who live there. The risk of becoming involved in crime or being victimized is greater in those communities that experience high levels of social exclusion or a lack of social cohesion. Also underlining the community development approach is the belief that crime in a particular community is not primarily or solely the result of the action of a small number of criminologically disposed individuals, but the result of coincidence of a series of structural determinants present within particular communities, example differential rates of access to housing, employment, education and health services among other factors. The underlying assumption is that if these crime promoting structural stress factors can be relieved, reconfigured or removed, then crime will be reduced. Community development strategies can aim to build social cohesion and address factors leading to community disorganization, empower communities to participate in decision-making processes, increase resources, services and economic opportunities in disadvantaged communities, or address low-level physical or social disorganization that may be a precursor to more serious problems. Community development programs that focus on strengthening informal networks and enhancing community structures have the potential to build community capacity, which can in turn provide opportunities to mobilize communities to address local crime problems. The implementation of community-wide programs has proven difficult due to the challenges of rolling out those types of programs on a broader scale, including problems associated with engaging the wider community for even identifying who the community is and maintaining their involvement. For example, cooperation and participation can be lacking in highly disorganized communities who might benefit most from these types of programs. Community development type programs are more likely to be effective when they identify communities at need based on evidence and community consultation and analyze factors that may contribute to social disadvantage or exclusion. It may take into consideration a community's capacity to implement change and level of social disorganization. It increases opportunities to participate and promotes community involvement and consultation in program design and decision making, as well as in the management of activities that impact on either directly or indirectly those social conditions believed to sustain crime in residential settings. It encourages representation from diverse groups, particularly those community members most at risk of being marginalized. It coordinates efforts between agencies across government and non-government sectors to target multiple areas of disadvantage supported by neighborhood regeneration. It provides with ongoing support including human, financial and physical resources, and it regularly reviews progress to ensure that initiatives remain on track. When compared with situational development approaches, there is limited evidence of the effectiveness of efforts to modify community level factors to reduce crime. There is some evidence that neighborhood level interventions to address issues related to economic and social regeneration in deprived areas in the United Kingdom resulted in reductions in crime and fear and increased satisfaction with the local area. Now let us talk about other crime prevention agencies. Although many people think only of the police as crime prevention agencies, in fact nearly every local department plays some important role in promoting crime prevention. The following are examples. Building inspection and code enforcement. It enforces building codes that help ensure that property owners are responsibly maintaining their properties, which discourages crime in and around them. Economic development. It influences an area's mix of commerce, which influences the types of people present in the area on various days and at various times of the day, which in turn influences crime opportunities and crime prevention. Government attorneys are responsible for much of the civil law enforcement, which is especially important for ensuring responsible property management that reduces crime and disorder risks. Mass transit regulates passengers' conduct and its transportation vehicles and stations' design and security. Mental health agencies are responsible for providing crisis intervention and community care for many mentally ill people, some of whom otherwise might become criminal offenders or victims. Parking influences traffic flow through parking regulations and controls the design, maintenance and security of public-owned parking facilities, which affects the safety and security of vehicles and the people in them. Local agencies are responsible for the design, maintenance and organized activities in parks, all of which influence the park's crime and disorder levels. Also, it is responsible for recreation programs that draw youth away from crime. Now, planning and community development. It approves site plans at the lot, building, neighborhood and community levels, the property design of which can discourage crime through the application of crime prevention through environmental design, SEPTED. Profile housing. It establishes and enforces standards of good conduct among tenants. Public libraries regulates patrons' conduct in the libraries and can provide youth with a safe and productive place to be when not in school. Public works are responsible for street lighting, which affects many nighttime crime problems such as burglary, robbery and sexual assault. Schools control the design of school buildings and grounds, policies on student attendance and off-campus privileges, after-school activities and in-school monitoring of student conduct, all of which affect the safety of students and the security of the surrounding neighborhood. Social services are responsible for the welfare of abused and neglected people, especially children, some elderly citizens and domestic violence victims. Now let us talk about the Indian context. Prevention of development-induced crime is a major issue in India. Millions of people get displaced by infrastructural development projects for a variety of reasons. One of the negative consequences of development-induced displacement is unemployment, social disintegration and poverty, which in turn may lead to displaced people into criminality. Those working in the development field increasingly recognize that the highest priority is to avoid displacement in the first place. Failing that, a positive next step towards minimizing the negative consequences of development-induced displacement would be to expand the guiding principles to spell out procedural guarantees, thereby ensuring that displacement is carried out in a manner consistent with international human rights and humanitarian law. Vocational training, loans and employment schemes should be provided to the displaced people. Now, prevention of socio-cultural crimes. It is also important because some illegal activities or practices are embedded in various cultures and communities and practiced through years by these communities. Legislations and law enforcements have been able to prevent the commission of such criminal activities ranging from child marriage to honor killing to a certain extent. But since these activities are intertwined with the cultural and religious sentiments of certain societies, this will not suffice to prevent the crimes in an effective manner. A multi-pronged approach should be implemented to prevent such socio-cultural crimes, including awareness campaigns, use of social media, increasing education, strict implementation of laws, etc. Unless until there is a change in the social fabric, it will only be wishful thinking to hope that such criminal activities are completely prevented, as they will continue to get support from large segments of the society. Now to conclude, responsibility and capacity to effect crime prevention reaches well beyond the police department. Depending on the particular crime problem or social problem at large, it should be ensured that all the local government agencies bearing some responsibility and capacity to influence that issue work together towards its resolution. Thank you.